As gamers, we've always had our fascinations, whether it be shooters, fighters, or racing games, and for me that fascination has always been fighting games. Now, the first fighting game I ever played was Mortal Kombat Deception, and I've always lost and never won in that game, but it always drove me to play more fighting games. And that leads us to today's topic of discussion, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes. It's gotta be one of my favorite fighting games, I would say, personally, on the Dreamcast. It's really fun and amazing, and let's just get straight into the review. This is your host, Marcus, and welcome to Mega Marck. Pretty much, yeah, I mean, the name can be changed. Cue intro. Now, one of my favorite things about this game is the fact that there's an easy mode, pretty much. I mean, to most hardcore fighting games fans, they may say that the easy mode is a cop-out and doesn't teach you the skills of fighting games. Well, that's true to a certain extent. I don't think that actually harms Marvel vs. Capcom in any way. I mean, some of its best characters like Captain Commando, Ryu, and I would personally say also Chun-Li, they all really benefit from having the ability to use a simpler moveset. And honestly, I really love the special moves and moves you can do in general in this game. Now, I know Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a superior game. I think there's actually a lot of value in the first Marvel game. So, essentially, it's just your standard tag team fighter that was very popular in the time, especially with Capcom. A lot of their games in this period was tag team. And unfortunately, with the PS1 port of this game, there is no tag team functionality, but in the Dreamcast port, there is. So that's what we're going to be mainly talking about today, the Dreamcast port and kind of the overall feel and what I just like about this game. I want this series of where I just go through and review these retro games to just be as casual as possible, you know. I'm no food critic, I'm no reviewer. I just want to give my opinion out on the games I love. So, let's just talk about the gameplay. As you can see here already, it just amazes me every single time. I even look back at my own gameplay. I'm no crazy player, but there's just so much synergy that this game provides. Every move, for the most part, can be comboed into each other. You can pull off a lot of sick moves without exactly knowing what you're doing, which is actually a good thing, I would argue, in most fighting games. While it's good for people to learn the complex and stringy moves, it's also important that while they're learning how to do those moves, they're still able to have fun and continue with the game to get better. That's what I think is just a little bit of an issue with most modern fighting games. I mean, Street Fighter 6 isn't that bad, but games like Tekken, for the most part, that have hundreds of moves, it doesn't make sense for most people to just kind of want to stick with it, you know. It just feels like it's concise. That's the word I'm looking for. These kind of fighting games were concise, and that's what I love about them. But moving on to something more specific, let's talk about the characters. Captain Commando has a really fun moveset. He can summon a ninja. You can see here his super, or at least one of them, is a giant laser that covers the screen. This other one is a close-up attack that launches the enemy. Another good move is a flying kick he has. It can cover a lot of ground really quickly. And right here, now we switch characters over to Strider. Strider, I haven't played too much of him, but from what I see, he's kind of similar in Captain Commando in the fact that he has very agile moveset. He's just not exactly great at using range attacks, but he has one of, I would argue, the better supers, as he can do a really good damage to people. As you saw in the previous clip before, he was able to essentially one-shot, I would say, about the half-health character. Not too bad. Now, another thing I really like about this game too is its kind of set of characters. Even though it's not a lot, it's a really solid cast of characters. I mean, you have Wolverine, you have Chun-Li, you have Ryu, you have Venom. You have a lot of really solid both Marvel and Capcom people. Now, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, of course, has the better roster. It's an evolution, but I think it's really important that we understand the fundamentals of what Marvel vs. Capcom laid for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And that brings me to my next point, the leveling system. So, pretty much every single time you do an attack or take damage, you gain super meter. Now, the super meter allows you to do supers and execute lots of damage. Now, I'm not so good to the point where I can execute the super EX move where you have both your partners, but I'm able to execute the normal super moves just fine. And they're all pretty fun all around. You know, pretty much they're your standard fighting game EX moves, super moves. It's what essentially Street Fighter Alpha, or not even Alpha, Street Fighter 2 established. But all in all, it's just really fun. You don't feel like you're always in a spot where you're gonna be permanently disadvantaged. Because, you know, oh no, I ran out of health. Oh no, I'm really low. Oh no, blah blah blah, I can't do this much damage. It doesn't make sense to do it that way. The way Marvel vs. Capcom 1 does it, the gameplay still is able to feel snappy and rewarding with its EX meter, because you're always gaining it, and you're always gaining the ability to just execute it at pretty much the last second to save yourself, which I find is a really important feeling to do and execute well in a fighting game. Another thing that Marvel vs. Capcom excels at is the level design, or the background design. Every single background in this game feels like it was hand-drawn and hand-picked. It makes it feel really special, you know? It makes you really understand that the devs cared about this game and the future of the franchise, alongside respecting the IPs involved. It has a good representation of both Capcom and Marvel stages, because, you know, it's Marvel vs. Capcom. It doesn't make sense if the stages were SNK or Star Wars. No. They're Marvel locations and they're Capcom locations, and they dynamically evolve sometimes during the match. With some EXs, it can actually change the background of the map occasionally, where it can kind of change and alter to the way that things were being fought. All in all, it's just really good, alongside the general art direction of this game. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of it. I like how all the characters move. I like the animations the characters use. It's just, you can just feel the polish oozing out of it. All in all, if I were to have a ranking of this game, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. So, just thank you for watching. This is kind of a more experimental video, and I'm really glad for whoever's watching is staying here to the end. This is Marcus. Goodbye.